All right, boys. Today we're going to be talking about what you should be eating in order for you to lose fat and gain muscle. Now, especially if you're a person who is, you eat cultural food like me, as like a Indian person or whatever you're from, right? You eat cultural food, so food that your mom makes, food which is very hard to track and very hard to, track how many grams of protein, how many calories. Basically, I'll teach you in this video how you can eat and what you can eat in order for you to continue or begin losing weight and how you can gain muscle. So the main thing you need to do, boys, is you need to eat single ingredient food, real food. So for example, foods like fruits, meat, eggs, fish, milk, other kinds of dairy as well, if you can digest it. Greek yogurt is a very what's the word? A very easily digestible way, no, not way of protein, sorry, form of protein, and you can digest it very easily. For me, I have issue with dairy, but Greek yogurt never gives you a problem. Um, I would say eat things like that as much as you can, as much as you possibly can, literally. Of course, if your mom makes your meals, fair enough. But the thing with your mom making your meals, make sure that your mom is cooking your food in anything besides seed oils. So the things which she should be cooking the foods in should be ghee, could be butter, olive oil, coconut oil, avocado oils, any kind of like animal fat like beef tallow, any any of them six are fine for health, are fine for building muscle and losing fat. A lot of people are under this misconception that ghee, especially brown people, that they think that ghee is bad. Everyone has various levels of like nutrition knowledge, but for some reason, this propaganda, everyone knows that or is under the impression that ghee is bad for you, when in reality it's not. In fact, for brown people, ghee is protective of the liver. Now, if you know anything about brown people and liver and stuff like that, you know that brown people have, or they genetically predisposition to be in a worse position to get illnesses like diabetes, heart issues, liver issues, and that's because from birth, brown people they have more fat on the liver. They have more visceral fat, fat around the kidneys, fat around the heart, fat around the liver. And that's simply from birth. And it's because, like in years, way, 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 like so many years gone by, generations gone by, there used to be after a lot of drought, a lot of famine, a lot of, times where they didn't have a lot of food to eat, a lot of water to drink. And it was very hard for them. Like a lot of people would die from famine and drought. And because of that, people from that crescent of the world, India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, their liver, their body has adapted to a point where their liver basically grabs a hold of a lot of fat. And it's not because something gone wrong. It's because of evolution, it's because of biology, it's because they had to suffer for like loads of years at a time. So they did a study with brown babies and I think it was Eastern European babies or just European babies, and they checked fat on, or around the organs at birth, and brown babies had way more fat around the liver, around the kidneys, around the heart compared to European babies. I think the other babies were from Norway, and the other babies, the South Asian babies, were from India. So our diets have to be, adapted to today, because in places like India, Sri Lanka, but the South Asia, basically, Southeast Asia, whatever you want to call it, there's no longer times of drought and famine. In fact, they're eating way more carbohydrates, way less protein, way more seed oils. Well, seed oils didn't even exist back then, but they're doing all the wrong things. And then a lot of brown people, they wonder, why am I getting these problems? Why am I having these issues? Why do I feel like this? And it's simply because they're eating the wrong foods, and they're eating foods which is not meant for their body and not meant for, their demographic. So the thing which I wouldn't even recommend, I would advise it, I would insist, is that we stop eating seed oils. Um, there's a bunch of seed oils, right? In the UK, we have mostly sunflower oil and vegetable oil. That's what people used to cook in. Now, when you buy packaged foods, there's like tons of different seed oils, right? In fact, in my free school community, after you join, I've got this 7-day seed oil challenge, and as a part of that, there's 3 videos. And in one of the videos, I do like a live shopping tutorial on Asda. And every single thing, well, when you'll come to learn, every single thing has seed oils in it. But what you would do is stop having seed oils, um start cooking your food in ghee, and I would just eat single ingredient food as much as you can, especially if you're like, if you're a younger person, you're not too attached to cultural foods. That's not something which you need to have. If you're someone who was born, like, let's just say after 1990, which is like 36, after that, I doubt you have an attachment to cultural food. Like, you might like a bit of biryani, like you might like a bit of DC every now and then. But for most of the people, they would be fine just eating like chicken and potatoes, like red meat with rice, fish with another kind of source of carbohydrates. Every now and again, you can have, if you can have cultural foods if you really want to. But if you're someone who's insistent, you want cultural foods every single day, you want whatever your mom used to make or your wife makes or whatever, then you you need to basically avoid seed oils at all costs. And another thing which you need to do, and which is a big problem in the brown people and in a lot of people, to be honest, is they do not get in enough protein whatsoever. Now, a lot of people think, and myself included for a while, I was under the impression that you need 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. To an extent, I wouldn't say there's anything bad with that, but I would just say that's a little bit overkill. For most guys, I would say 150 grams of protein is enough. Is enough. It's more than it's sufficient to build muscle. One thing I would do is keep the carbohydrates a little bit low, simply because it will lower your insulin, and lowering your insulin will allow you to lose fat, allow you to build muscle. It will just regulate bunch of your hormones. So I would lower the carbohydrates. I would increase the protein. In terms of calories and stuff like that, I would even maintain. I would maintain my calories as long as you lower the carbohydrates, increase the protein. Everything else will take care of itself. And when it comes to like vegetables and stuff like that, in fact, recently I have been, I won't say experimenting, but I haven't been eating a lot of vegetables compared to before, and it's not really had a massive impact on me. I have been eating fruits, obviously been drinking water, having my protein, having my supplements, stuff like that. But in terms of an actual health perspective, that is a very good framework. No seed oils, number one, boys. Increase protein. I would say, as a minimum, as a grown man, I would say 125 grams to around 160 grams of protein at the very max should be enough for muscle growth. In terms of cardio, stuff like that, I would say 150 minutes of cardio a week, which is equivalent to like 20 minutes of walking, 20 minutes of like zone 2 cardio, which is walking with like on a slight incline, where it's a little bit difficult. Gets to a point where it's a little bit difficult, I can't lie, but it will keep you in good stead. It will keep your heart healthy. It will allow you to eat that little bit more. Um, and I would just say eat real food, man. Eat real food. If you want like some kind of sweet dessert, stuff like that, have like dark chocolate, have Greek yogurt with honey, have like dates with ghee. There's so many, I would say alternatives, but there's so much, sweet stuff that you can eat, which is actually good for you, which is actually natural, which is actually, fruit, which is obviously good for you. Um, and yeah, make sure you get your water in. When it comes to water, it kind of depends. Me, I can drink about 4 liters of water a day. But for most people, if you're not used to drinking a lot of water, and you begin drinking water, and you feel like, I'm going for a wee every 10 minutes, then I would start drinking water slowly. Like, if you're having like half a liter of water, which is like a couple of glasses, right? I would get a water bottle, like a 1 liter water bottle. I would aim to have that. Then I would slightly taper up. I would have 1.5 bottles, then 2 bottles, and then see how you feel. If you feel like you get to like 2.5 liters of water, and you're like, what, I don't want to have any more. Otherwise, I just don't feel right, or I just keep going to the toilet. Then fair enough. But at least have 2 liters of water a day. Your body is like 80% water. So make sure you're hydrating yourself. I would add a little bit of salt in the water, because salt pulls water into the cell, if that makes sense. So your cells actually get hydrated. When you're just having loads of water with no minerals, you're just weeing everything out, and you're weeing stuff out which you actually need at that stage. But as long as there's a bit of salt, you'll hydrate yourself, you'll hydrate your body. And when you're working out as well, you won't cramp up, you won't feel that fatigue in your body. And that is pretty much it, boys. As long as you take care of your diet, you don't eat seed oils, you'll be so much more better off. because seed oil is like a modern day invention. It's supposed to be something which is using diesel engines. I'll tell you a little story. I had in my garden, in my front garden, whatever you want to call it, front lawn, I had these bushes or trees that needed chopping down. Like they were really thick, like proper thick ones. And they had thorns in it as well, like them little nettly joints. So I got this hedge trimmer of a family member, and it just wasn't strong enough. So I ordered this chainsaw. Some big fat chainsaw came, right, and then it said it needed oil, and then I thought, no way, what can I do? I'm not gonna. I didn't want to put like olive oil or anything like that in it. Then I went in the cupboard, and I remember someone gave me some kind of seed oil, like it was vegetable oil or sunflower, one of the ones, right? I didn't really pour it out at that time. I thought, you know what, let me just keep it just in case someone else wants it or there's another use for it. And then I thought, you know what, I had a light bulb moment. I thought, let me put this in my chainsaw. And my chainsaw worked completely fine. In fact, it didn't even like it oiled the chain properly. Everything worked fine. And that just goes to show that you're putting something which I'm putting in my seed oil, you're putting that in your body. And you might think to yourself, why do I feel so bad? Why can't I not lose weight? Why is my skin like this? Why am I inflamed? Why do I have brain fog? It's because you're consuming things which is made for an automotive vehicle. Ah, yeah, boys, that's pretty much it. Avoid seed oils, have more protein, eat real food, and you will be so much more better off. So much more better off. And boys, if you want a more in-depth guide, something which I've created from 13 years of training, 13 years of learning, of experimenting, then consider joining my free school community. I've created this thing called the Elite Body Blueprint, where it's basically a course where it tells you more in depth on like diet, on nutrition, on lifting weights, on basically gives you a program. I've got sleep modules, I've got things on how to cook high protein meals, mindset stuff. And basically, yeah, I've a few guys have joined my community recently, and I've basically helped them out. If you join my sorry, even if you just click on my community page, you don't even have to join it if you don't want to, but you could see the client wins I've got. And yeah, boys, if that sounds of interest to you, then consider joining my free school community.